Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Films and Stuff. I am Ethan, joined by my partner in crime, Pete. Hey, Pete, what's up today?
Not much, buddy. How are you?
I am fine as well. This is our weekly stream or skip episode of Films and Stuff. I know the rules. You know the rules. Regular listeners have memorized the rules, but for those new listeners, can you please give your 15 seconds or less crib notes version of the rules?
I'll give it a shot. Ethan and I have prepared lists of TV shows for each other. Every week, we randomly assign one show or movie. We watch at least 2 episodes or 30 minutes if it's a feature-length program. And based on that, we determine if that show is worthy of being streamed or skipped.
Just like the name implies. Okay, before we get into this week's assignment, shall we take a step back and revisit last week's assignment? The big development we had was that you were assigned Vortex on Netflix, a French time travel drama, which I didn't know much about, except I knew it was a little bit sci-fi-ish. It turned out you fell in love at first sight. You binged it, I think, across 2 days.
Yeah, 1 episode on the first day, and then all the remaining 5 on the second.
You told me about it. I started watching, haven't finished it, so no spoilers on how it ends. But I concur 100%. This is a fantastic show. It is really a must subscribe on Netflix. If we had an award for like the most surprising series to captivate us, this may be in the running for that, right? I don't think either one of us suspected this.
Certainly not.
What's your major takeaway?
As we kind of implied, my major takeaway, when the dust settled, is that I'm actually anticipating more shows like this on Netflix and maybe Amazon. And by that, I don't mean more shows like more time travel mystery shows. No. On a more high-level view, more shows that are of this quality that we would normally not watch, that we're going to kind of be forced to watch because of the lack of new content. We're going to start to see that. Cable television in the US has already been affected quite dramatically by the writer's strike and the actor's strike.
Yeah.
It's going to hit the streaming platforms and then also the Hollywood platforms within the next couple of months. I think the lag, because the strike has been going on for like almost 5-6 months now, I think the lag is going to catch up at this point.
I think we're starting to see that. And of all the platforms, Netflix and Amazon Prime, in that order, seem to be the 2 best placed to kind of weather that a little bit, because they do have substantial international catalogs that they can rely on. Netflix has always kind of, in my opinion, promoted that a little bit more. I think we've seen it kind of with Money Heist. We've also seen it with Korean shows that they've had, Squid Game, Black Knight. There's a few other that you saw as well. Narco Saints, I think, was one.
Queenmaker this week.
Yeah. So I think Netflix is better placed to that. And some of those foreign shows have been phenomenons, like Squid Game. Some of them have been kind of, this seems to be pushed on me. But when you add in kind of like the British comedies and dramas, I think Netflix has a better catalog. And something nice may be that these diamonds in the rough will now be more likely to be discovered. Honestly, Vortex it actually doesn't really seem to be a French show. It doesn't really take place like in the cafes of Paris. It's not really like a Parisian setting. It takes place in kind of like a beachy town that honestly could be almost anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't guess it's, like Los Angeles, but it could have been kind of Australia. It could have been South Africa. Could have
Cape
been,
Cod,
yeah,
the southern coast of
yeah,
England. Anyway,
yeah,
really.
yeah. Apart from the fact that it was in French, it had a very international, I think, appeal to it because it wasn't, intended to be based only in like the heart of France and about, all these other like French cultural things. So that's my one general takeaway in terms of the overall popularity of these shows and what Netflix is doing. My second takeaway is you and I love sci-fi, you and I love time travel, right?
Yeah.
There's no absence of time travel movies out there. God bless one more time Back to the Future and Michael J. Fox. In some ways, I think that movie is so important to the entertainment genre of time travel. Every show or movie that has time travel obviously adds their own little wrinkle to it. And when you think about time travel, all those other like practicalities or logistics obviously come into play. The one I got from this show, Vortex, that like really hit hard is that it's not always best to change the past. You really lose something in the present or in the future, right?
Yeah.
Back to the Future kind of minimizes that because it says, hey, I can change this one thing and everything will be better in the future, right? And then, of course, we see in Back to the Future 2 how it could have a negative impact, but then they can kind of fix everything. I thought that Vortex goes into this really extensive emotional detail of really how much would change, even if you could go back and kind of fix that one thing, in your past. And I thought that was like a really poignant point that was made in the show. And I have to say, I don't know if you noticed it as well. French actors and actresses seem to be way better at their craft. Sometimes you see on a lot of shows or movies, people cry and you're like, okay, like that's definitely a fake cry. Like it's the obligatory cry, you see like shouting. I feel like the American style is a little bit more like shouting and aggressive fighting. The French actors in Vortex, I thought, played this very emotional distress or emotional happiness. Their facial expressions and the way that they emoted that on screen was so believable. At no time did I really feel like they were acting or faking their outrage or their sadness or their anger or their difficult conversations that they were having between the characters. I felt that the acting and the believableness of all of it was just so well done. I think that's what sucked me into the show as much as anything.
Yeah, I understand that. They weren't overly emotive. It wouldn't have been difficult, especially because this is a sci-fi show about time travel. It would have been really easy for the actors to kind of ham it up a little bit.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have taken away too much from the show because ultimately the people who are watching it aren't necessarily watching it for the dramatic tension. They're probably watching it to resolve the mystery, to resolve the time travel and the sci-fi element of it. And people tend to be a little bit more, let's say, forgiving of quote unquote genre movies like that.
Yeah.
Whereas I think here they said, look, let's treat this like a serious drama that happens to have a sci-fi element to it.
What did you think of the sci-fi element? Because that's the first thing that we are kind of exposed to is the VR glasses and the room. What do you think about the sci-fi element? I felt like it got a little bit weaker as time went on. Like I thought this was really going to be sci-fi-ish. It's really a time travel drama. The sci-fi is a little bit weak, right?
Yeah. I would go so far as to say that the sci-fi element is almost irrelevant after the first two episodes, where they introduce that really as just a mechanism to explain what's going on.
Yeah.
If this were truly a sci-fi show, at some point they would have rigged up a backpack so that he could experience this in real life outside of the confines of this room. So instead of just having a pair of that, those Oakley sunglasses on, he's all of a sudden at the real world beach with a backpack and like a computer. And, like they're trying to figure out some quantum way of doing that, once they establish that there's a time travel element to this, it really doesn't focus on that. It's about solving a murder mystery.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a better way, though, that they could have used the sci-fi to like bridge these two worlds? Back to the Future had the DeLorean, powered by uranium with a flux capacitor. We've seen other gadgets and machines that have like all these rotating arms and whirly things, there's spheres or something else. We've seen kind of like the portals. We've seen so many different kind of time travel devices. Do you think the VR was on the weak side of trying to do that?
I mean, if you're looking purely as a sci-fi thing, yeah, because again, after the first or second episode, it was kind of almost disregarded. It was, but I didn't mind that, to be honest, because I got so wrapped up in the drama, into the mystery of it all, that I was just like, okay, I mean, even though this is classified as a science fiction show, it's really a murder mystery, which has a patina of science fiction on it.
The only thing I could have thought that would be a little bit better is if he would have put on the VR glasses for his wife's crime scene. Then I could kind of see that, he would be back in that period. But of course, in that period, she's dead. One thing would have been like, if he would have put on the VR glasses for the current time period, she would have been older, maybe.
So like an alternate universe, right?
Yeah, kind of. And then
present day age, running across the beach.
Yeah, and then like if there would have been like, apparently there were like a few murders on that beach. So if he would have put on like the VR glasses from like 5 years ago and 10 years ago, she would have been kind of like de-aged, and then he could kind of like speak with her at like different periods, something like that.
Yeah, and maybe in that universe, he's the one who died, and that's why she doesn't recognize him as the older guy.
That's right. But in any case, got 2 episodes to go. I love the show. I totally agree with you. It's a must subscribe. It's Vortex on Netflix. It's really a diamond in the rough, but I'm so happy that we found it through StreamerSkip.
Thank you for putting it on the list, because my God, we've said this a couple times now. This is what StreamerSkip is really about. I would never have watched this unless I were quote unquote forced to by the conceit of this show.
This kind of justifies some of the rubbish that we've watched to find something like this. So with that being said, where are we now? This week's assignments. What did you have?
So this week I had another foreign language show, and going back to what you were talking about, I had another Korean drama on Netflix called Queenmaker. I saw the 2 episodes. I liked it, but I'm not 100% sure that it's something I'm going to go back to immediately. Okay. It's something I could see myself watching if I had nothing else left on my watch list.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100% sure I'm going to run to finish out the series.
Tell us about it.
It focuses on this woman who works for lack of a better word, like a very wealthy dynasty of Korean business. Imagine Samsung, but not a tech company. She's working for a high-end boutique/retail family that also owns the rights to like the duty-free industry. Now, for people in the West who don't know, in East Asia, especially in Southeast Asia, duty-free, like the stuff that, the shopping centers that we see in the airports, those rights to own those stores are granted by the government, and generally they're given to like a company that is well established in the retail industry, and those are huge money makers. It's one of the most profitable retail businesses you could open because it's almost like guaranteed income. So it's usually given to a company that has some political sway, that's very wealthy. So this family this woman works for owns the rights to, I guess, Korea's duty-free shopping. Okay. And they also own like a bunch of like these really high-end boutique stores. Think of her kind of like Kiefer Sutherland in Rabbit Hole.
Oh.
She works for the quote unquote corporate strategy team. That's the official name of her department.
Okay.
But she's really the fixer for the family. Anytime there's like a PR disaster or something like that, her team steps in to kind of smooth things over. Yeah?
Is she young or old?
She's relatively young. And I'll give you an example. So the first episode kind of sets the scene to what her role in the business is. The business is run and owned by a matriarch, this old woman. She's got 2 daughters, and both those daughters are nightmares, absolute nightmares. And we open, one of them has like this disorder. I don't think it's a real thing, but it's called intermittent explosive disorder.
I bet that's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's basically she's like this super prone to aggressive violence, like throws tantrums. If someone slights her in the smallest way, she'll beat them up and things like that. And because she's like this super public figure, someone recorded her doing that. There's like this amateur video of her berating her driver and then like berating some retail workers at their store, that kind of stuff. And so she's basically accused of assault, harassment, and being a total pain in the ass to everyone. The scene of the show starts up on this. We start with the fixer, who basically is in the retail store, and she is getting the outfit that she wants her boss's daughter to wear.
Okay.
And the idea is that she's going for a look that kind of makes her look diminished and weaker to kind of curry public favor physically.
Yeah. Sympathy. Yeah.
Right. Garner sympathy. And then like she's just had a baby. She's got a loving husband. They purposefully make it look like her hair is thinning so that they can say that, you know, she's super stressed out. You can even tell like she's supposed to be one of the wealthiest women in the country, but she's got bad hair. Her clothes aren't exactly super sexy or stylish. You know, she looks a little frumpy, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then at the police station during the interrogation, she arranges for a photo op where she's pumping breast milk to be like, look at this poor mother. Is this what this country does? You know, we're harassing young mothers, first-time mothers who are obviously stressed out. That's why she's also losing her hair. That kind of thing. How can a woman have it all when she's supposed to be this high-powered executive who's also a first-time mother, blah, blah, blah. Then she calls up like the online blogging circles.
Yeah.
She leaks the photos and she says, this is what I want you to write the articles about. This is how you to present her, note the hair, note the clothes, etc. So immediately you see like the online community starts sympathizing with her, and like you see like the public opinion is swayed towards her.
Okay.
One paper doesn't want to work with her, so what she does is, fine, we're going to pull all our advertisement from you. So you know she's exerting like corporate influence and things like that. Simultaneously, all the clothes that she made her boss's daughter wear are exclusive, and they're starting to sell them in the stores on the same day, and they're selling out like crazy. So you see what
this
doing?
Lady is amazing. Yeah.
She's playing both sides, and like they basically set up that first episode to show you that she is hardcore loyal to this family.
Yeah.
She'll do whatever it takes to make sure that her boss and her boss's family comes out smelling like roses no matter what, even though this woman is awful. She arranges for the daughter's husband to do a public apology to continue currying favor, right? He's like, this is my fault. I thought I was looking out for my wife by supporting her on the sidelines. I just let her be. It was because of me that this happened. So he's trying to swing the blame onto him. It works. And she only spends the one night in jail in custody. And then the charges are either dropped or like lowered dramatically. And then, of course, the mother invites the fixer and the son-in-law to lunch. then the mother is very happy with the fixer's job and the work that she's done. So she gives her a brand new like Maserati as a present. And then we find out that the daughter gets released from jail early, and the fixer didn't know that. She was supposed to pick her up. So she kind of gets admonished by the daughter. And then at the lunch table, that daughter who was in jail starts hitting the husband. She's like, how could you accept the blame? How could you look at that? Like, it makes me look weak, and she starts flipping out and she starts hitting her and she cuts his face. So she does have some kind of disorder that everyone is doing their best to hide. So that was the first episode. It's basically a long setup to show you that the fixer is super proficient, super badass, and she's able to do her job.
Okay.
The B story we find out is the company is facing a little bit of political pressure because they let go like 500 staff unfairly.
Okay.
And this human rights lawyer is protesting by camping up on the rooftop of one of their buildings.
Okay.
And, people are sending her food by drones. She's kind of, she's kind of like doing a holdout there.
Yeah.
And the fixer is it's now her task to get her off the roof, etc. That's the B plot. The core drama we find out is that the mayor of Seoul wants 25% of their business. And in exchange, he's given them a bunch of like planning permissions and things like that for this brand new flagship store. She doesn't want that to happen, the matriarch. So what she does is, I'm going to put my son-in-law as the next mayor. We'll get him elected. And then we find out that the son-in-law isn't as good as everyone thinks he is.
Is this the guy who took the blame?
The guy who took the blame. So in the first episode, they spend the whole episode making him to look out like an angel. And then in the second episode, we find out he has an affair with an underling at the company.
Oh, no.
He comes out and tells people about this affair. He denies it. Then the fixer is called in to fix it. And she does it in such a way that she's gonna, she accuses her of blackmail. It was all false, blah, blah, blah. And then that woman commits suicide.
Ooh.
When she commits suicide, she jumps off the 50th floor of the building, lands on the car. As the body lands, the guy's cufflink was in her hand.
Oh.
And we learned in the last episode, he was missing a cufflink and he couldn't find it. And it's because he was having an affair. She puts two and two together, so she takes the blame like, it's because of me that this young woman who was innocent has committed suicide. Then the mother-in-law obviously knew or figured out that he was having an affair, but she doesn't care. She was like, I don't care. I want you to help him become elected mayor. She doesn't want to do that because she was like, this guy's a bad guy. And then, of course, the curtains drop. He comes and accuses her. He starts talking back to her. He starts up another affair with somebody else. And it's just a whole mess. It becomes a stereotypical family drama. And that's where it ends.
Some of this sounds quite compelling. What about it makes it a mooch and not a must subscribe or a skip?
I'll tell you what it is. Because I was thinking exactly that same question. Because on paper, some of this sounds awesome. It sounds very much like Rabbit Hole, which is about manipulation of society, psychological, economic, political, to get what you wanted.
Yes.
If it had stayed in that arena into getting him elected as the mayor and etc., I would have been all in on this show. But for me, it got a little bit messy because now it's become about this guy who's not a good guy, who's having an affair, blah, blah, blah. It was revealed too early. And so now I know what's going to happen, even though I haven't seen it. She's going to team up with the human rights lawyer who's on the rooftop, who the company is trying to evict forcefully. There's going to be something like that where she's going to be forced to work with her. Then the company is going to spend all their efforts to destroy her credibility.
Yeah.
That on its own would have been absolutely great. This extra dimension of this guy actually being a bad guy that we know from the get-go. I think if they had
Too
done
much
that
too
reveal
soon.
in like episode 10, it would have
Yeah.
blown my mind.
Too much too soon.
Too much too soon. I think that's the thing. And so now it's going to be, the compelling parts are going to be, how does she extract herself from this predicament, because she doesn't want this asshole to become the new mayor of Seoul. She's now put herself in a position where she's defying the family and she has to try to stop this guy. Ultimately, I know what's going to happen.
You know, you raise a very good point. I'm going to draw the parallel to Vortex. You know, what Vortex did exceptionally well, and you see this in other dramas, is they do leave a lot to the imagination in terms of who is actually the bad guy, or is someone a good guy or a bad guy, where they kind of give little breadcrumbs or hints of both, right?
Yeah.
And I thought Vortex did that exceptionally well. There's a number of people who are kind of suspects, and they all have very compelling reasons to be suspects. And we're also kind of like tempted to really like dislike them for like these little subtle things about them. But then it kind of pulls it back and says, yeah, but they didn't kill anyone, right? Yeah. And it seems like they've kind of made this mistake in Queenmaker, which is, it definitely would have been better to kind of see two perspectives of the guy, where maybe he does have kind of a gambling problem, or maybe he does have a mistress who's like an old girlfriend that he can't kick, or maybe he's got a brother who's got like a drug problem. But on the other hand, he's still like a very good father. You know what that reminds me of, as I've just described it? Andor, Senator's husband, right?
Yes, exactly.
We're not sure if it's someone, is it a good guy or a bad guy? And I take your point. When you reveal that too soon, it's...
I mean, when you have a defined bad guy, it kind of takes the air away from the mystery.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that this was meant to be a mystery. It's going to be a compelling drama. No matter what you do and however you cut it, it will be a compelling drama. Personally, I would have favored a good mystery. What would have I thought would have been great? The woman who commits suicide, she sends her an email and says that I'm not this kind of person, blah, blah, blah. Like she sends her basically a suicide note by email.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that would have been great if they revealed that at like the 9th episode or the 10th episode. And she's like, and here's proof in my locker. This is the combination. You'll find ultimate proof that this is true. And then we see the cufflink. And then we see a flashback to him all the way in episode 1 where he's missing a cufflink. And he was like, oh, I wonder where I dropped this.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, the shoe drops. We're just like, oh my God, he was the bad guy all along.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that last 2 episodes, it's the reckoning and then a relatively quick resolution. I think that would have been a little bit more compelling to watch.
There also needs to be like a third drama involved, right? I think all the shows you and I love, there's kind of like 3 actors at least involved, right? And it's not clear who the main is. And one of those things I would think would be what you described is, let's say she doesn't like the son-in-law. She thinks he's a bad guy and doesn't want to see him elected, but she has a job to do. And then you could also say like, maybe the fixer is from like kind of the slums, and one of the mayor's new like things is like redevelopment of this area, and like her childhood home or her parents are going to be forced out or something, right?
So you already nailed it. We see a little bit of backstory of the fixer. She was picked out as a disadvantaged poor girl working at a camp. And before the matriarch became the matriarch, she kind of took her on under her wing.
There you go.
So like one of the scenes where she gets the Maserati, the matriarch is talking to like her sister or her cousin or whatever, someone who's associated with the family, in French. And the other woman says, don't trust her. She's a street rat, etc., etc., etc. Yeah. So you've already
We've watched too many shows. We've watched too many shows. But that also reinforces your point, which is we've seen a lot of television. When you do a reveal like this right away, it does suck the air out of it a little bit, which is, why am I going to waste my time watching this? Like, now you've already told me the whole story, like up front, right? Vortex, I think, was great and is great because, again, everything kept changing. And every episode, I kind of thought like how it was going to play out. But then again, things kept changing based on their communications in the present or in the past. Then the present kept changing, and then they had to go back and like kind of recalibrate, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, like we saved you, but then this happened with your friend, and we saved you, but then this happened, and then this happened with my wife, and suddenly it's like
a crazy whodunit with the butterfly effect. It's very well done. And so ultimately, that's the point of this review of Streamer Skip for Queenmaker, is that we'd rather be talking about Vortex than Queenmaker. Queenmaker is by no means a bad show. Production value is phenomenal. Cinematography, very good. I'm not well versed in Korean dramas. The acting looks excellent. The actors, very attractive, very good. I don't know if they're famous or not famous. They're not people that I would recognize, obviously. I think that if you're into dramas, specifically Korean dramas, because I think that also has become like a subgenre to itself.
Yeah.
I think you're going to love it. I don't think it's a must subscribe to me, only because they revealed the intentions and the quote unquote bad guy too early.
Yeah.
And that could have been something that if they had focused a little bit more on like Rabbit Hole, where every episode she's using a new trick from her bag of tricks to kind of get her way, I think that would have been fantastic. And, I think that we'll leave it at that. That it's a strong mooch. It's something I will probably finish, but I'm not putting it high on my list. There's so many other things that I need to watch that when I'm done with my, watch list for 23, I'll probably go back to it.
I have to say, you've at least convinced me though, but you've sold it enough that I feel like I would definitely watch the first episode.
Oh yeah, I would recommend it because the first episode was really strong. I actually think had the first episode continued without that massive reveal, I would have been all in on the show.
So that is Queenmaker on Netflix.
It's a strong mooch. Recommend it. If you don't have Netflix, borrow someone's password. Watch it.
All right. Now, you assigned me originally a Netflix show called Alice in Borderland.
Yeah.
Which, unfortunately, is no longer accessible to me in Dubai. I've never had this problem with Netflix before.
You're surprised, yeah.
Never had this issue with Netflix before. So we had to call an audible, Jalen Hurts style, and I am now assigned to The Gold, which is on Paramount Plus, made in connection with the BBC. It is a crime thriller, and it stars Jack Lowden, who you know as River from Slow Horses.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
This is loosely based on a true story, apparently. In 1983, 26 million sterling pounds of gold bricks were stolen. Obviously, they've put all the disclaimers. Some names and identities have been changed. Some elements are more dramatic and so forth. I watched 2 episodes. I'm going to cut to the chase. I think this is a must subscribe.
Oh.
And I have to say, Paramount Plus coming on a little bit strong lately. Let me break down what's happened in the first 2 episodes. Apparently, like near Heathrow Airport, there's like a, Brinks, right?
Yeah.
We've all heard of the Brinks trucks, the security agency. They've got like some type of warehouse, and there is an armed robbery. Again, this is the 80s. And armed robberies in the 80s are always kind of cute, right? I mean,
especially in England.
Just a different time, right?
Yeah.
So there's an armed robbery. They think that there is like a vault, and inside the vault is like cash. It's intended to be kind of like a smash and grab, but they thought that there'd be relatively low security here. True. They thought that there was a vault. True. They thought, hey, we'll just like put the gun in some guy's face. He'll open the vault. We'll open the vault. There'll be a bunch of cash. We'll put it in a bag. Off we go. Turns out the vault could not be opened for some reasons I won't give the spoiler alert for. But by either coincidence or by tip-off, a huge delivery or shipment of gold bricks had been made. The shipment being so big, it actually could not go into the vault. So it was just sitting outside the vault. They are either the luckiest people ever or the unluckiest people ever. It's hard to believe that they actually wanted to get into the vault, could not, but as a consolation prize, they found all this gold. So now these guys have stole all this gold. And again, this is 1983. There's no CCTV. There's no GPS. There's nothing, right? You just load it up in a van and you drive off, and that's the end of it. No one can really track or trace you. So all the police and the investigators are obviously looking for the gold. Obviously, they think this must somehow be an inside job. They can't believe that this is just good luck or bad luck or dumb luck. They think this must be an inside job, that they knew that these gold bricks were going to be delivered that day. Now, where are the gold bricks? These are just like small-time thieves. They thought they'd get a bunch of cash and spend it. Now they've got gold. And as you know, like pure gold bricks that are stamped and everything, like you can't just take them, especially now that this is on the news and everything, you can't just take them to a pawn shop. So apparently they find a guy who's in the gold industry. And now we're turning into kind of like a Breaking Bad type situation. Here you've got something a little bit similar. Guy in the gold industry knows how to move gold, understands the gold, looking to make a bigger name for himself and get out of kind of his rut in life. They kind of team up. And then there's another team up, because they obviously realize even if they wash all this gold in the market, they're going to have a lot of cash, and they still need to do something with all the cash. Like it's such a huge amount that will obviously draw suspicion as well. That's the premise. I think it's a must subscribe for a few reasons. One, based on a true story. Two, the subject matter is pretty cool. You love a good heist, but it's beyond the heist now, right? They've already got the goods, and the goods now are being what they would call fenced, although I don't know if you call it fenced at that scale. And three, I think we're going to see that there's going to be basically kind of like 3 or 4 parties involved. There's going to be the small-time thieves. They need help. There's going to be the gold team. And then there's going to be kind of like the, let's say, professional institutional team. And I assume that all 3 of these groups are going to be at each other's, maybe not at each other's throats, but there's definitely going to be some
tension, right?
Yeah, tension, and each side is going to believe that they're the most critical part of this game.
Yeah.
And all sides kind of need each other for this to succeed. So you're going to see 3 very strange bedfellows kind of working together, cooperating, suffering each other in order to make this work. And then you'll see the authorities, which are kind of on the fourth side, you know, trying to chase down all these leads, always one step behind. After watching 2 episodes, I definitely want to watch the next episode.
Right.
Another one of these things, do you remember that Jason Statham movie where they did like this heist? What was the name of that movie? I can't remember.
I don't remember, but he was a mechanic.
Yes. That movie, I thought, did something really interesting, which is you're kind of rooting for the bad guy.
Yeah.
Not so much the bad guy, you're rooting for the criminal. If you live in a modern society and you're not a psychopath, there is the cop and the robber, and you're supposed to be cheering for the cop and you're supposed to be cheering against the robber, right? This is kind of the fundamentals of good versus evil, right?
Yeah.
That movie, and I think even this show, has kind of turned that on its head, where you're kind of like, I kind of like the bad guy. The criminal or the thief is a little bit more compelling and sympathetic than the big, bad, arrogant cop or police officer in this case, right?
Yeah.
I think you're going to get a situation like this where we're going to be a little bit more sympathetic to the bad guys than the good guys. And it'll be really interesting how this plays out. Again, I haven't read like the Wikipedia entry on this thing. I'm kind of tempted to do so, but then I don't want to see really how it ends.
Yeah.
But I would expect it's going to end a little bit similar to that Jason Statham movie where I kind of feel like the guys aren't going to get caught. If they got caught, then I think they wouldn't really make a show about it.
Maybe.
So The Gold, Paramount Plus, crime thriller, just came out 2023. I'm very, very impressed by it so far. I think this is going to be a must subscribe. Highly recommended. Pete, you love a good heist.
I do. I really do.
If Nick Cage made a heist movie, you would just be in your utopia.
I mean, he made one. I want him to make a sequel.
Which one do you make?
Gone in 60 Seconds.
Oh, yeah, that is a heist movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my God. If he made Gone in 61 Seconds, I would watch that in a heartbeat.
Why is that not being made?
I don't know.
And why is there not a Gone in 62 Seconds?
I know. This could be the greatest threat to the Fast and the Furious franchise.
Do you think it should be 61 seconds or you think it should be 59 seconds?
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, yeah, 59 seconds. I like that.
That would also be cool because that's kind of like you're counting down the sequels, right? So you're like, okay, now we're gone and...
Oh, I mean, I don't expect a franchise of 60, but still. I mean, I'll watch them all.
All right. You had Queenmaker on Netflix. I had The Gold on Paramount Plus. What are the assignments for next week?
So for next week, you are going to stay on Paramount Plus. You're watching a show called Joe Pickett.
Joe Pickett.
Yeah, I've seen the thumbnail once, and maybe that's why I put it on there, but I don't know anything about it.
No idea. Okay.
I am on Hulu, which means maybe Disney Plus. To be determined. I'll find out. This Fooled.
I put that on your list?
You did?
Huh. Don't remember it at all. Okay. Well, I wish you very good luck with that. All right. Pete, if everyone wants to give us some feedback on Vortex or anything else that we've seen, what are our social media details?
Absolutely. Guys, I really want to hear about your opinions on Vortex.
I do as well.
Please reach out to us. Tweet at us at F&S Podcast. Drop us a DM on Instagram at Films and Stuff Podcast. Email us aloha@filmsandstuffpodcast.com. And again, let us know what you think. Leave a comment below this video. Like this video. Most importantly, subscribe to our channel so that you always know when the latest episode of the Films and Stuff Podcast drops.
I could not have said that better myself. Okay, everybody, thank you for tuning in to the stream or skip episode of Films and Stuff. We will see you next week with 2 more reviews for you.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Pete. Bye now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.